Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming to our 2018 annual meeting and budget hearing. The first part of the agenda is to elect a chairperson, and I would like to elect David Betcher.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Oh, lucky me. So the next order of business is reading the official notice of the budget hearing for the annual meeting, which is our school district clerk. Ooh.
Notice is hereby given to the qualified electors of the Waunakee Community School District that the annual meeting of said district for the transaction of business will be held at the District Administrative and Maintenance Center at 605 Bethel Circle on the 15th day of October 2018 at 7 p.m. And this notice was properly noticed as it appeared in the Waunakee Tribune on October 11th.
And the next item is the budget summary and the district goals report by our district administrator, Randy Gutman.
I'm going to have Rebecca pull up the budget summary for a few comments. First of all, this is the summary of our budget by funds, and looking at our general funds. The one piece I wanted to share with you was you see our total revenues of $48,230,000. And then you can see at the very bottom our expenditures of $48,740,000. So you see a difference there as far as it looks like we are running in the negative. That is really not the case, because if you go to the top of the page and you look at our fund balance, that is the equivalent dollars that we are spending out of fund balance for maintenance projects over this course of this year. So the budget is balanced per the report that you see here, and you have to take into account the fund balance dollars that we've allocated for facility maintenance projects to offset the revenue piece to show where those dollars are coming from. The other piece I just wanted to, how do I roll down here, Rebecca? Some of these funds are self-explanatory, certainly. There's a couple of them that I just want to highlight. The package, it's the one that's called Package and Cooperative Program Funding. This is just, we serve as the fiscal agent for the Dane County New Teacher Project, so that's dollars that come in and out, and we are just serve as the fiscal agent for it. Also the Special Projects Fund, which I believe was up farther, I think, Rebecca. Capital Debt Service. Special Projects, yes, that's a combination of Fund 21, which is gifts, and also Fund 27, which is the majority of it, which is special ed. So just wanted to clarify those, because when you take a look at these descriptors, it's not always clear as far as what those are. So going into tonight, we'll be talking about really the revenue side and the expenditure side, but wanted to articulate from this sheet that we are running a balanced budget proposal for the 18-19 school year. All right, as far as our budget goals, this is similar to what we have put forth at the very beginning of our budget process in the past. Our first one is the expectation to bring forth a balanced budget, which we are again this evening. We're also looking to align our resources with our strategic plan. We just had revised that at the last board meeting, so our work moving forward will continue to align with those strategic directions. We're also looking at competitive salary and benefits for our returning staff, looking at ways that we can improve our educational programs and continue to move programs forward, and then also meet the needs of our growing population that's continuing to have more diverse needs that we need to address. So those are our goals that we've really used to align our dollars this year for our budget process. We've also taken a look at strategies to reallocate dollars throughout our system. And then we've also been working as an administrative team, particularly led by Steve Summers. The presentation, just as I'm speaking about Steve, is that I'm giving tonight is really one that he has put together. I'm doing my own commentary pieces on it, but I greatly appreciate the work that he put on before he left on his leave. But the Forecast 5 process and the products that are put forth there are certainly things that he is leading with our district and having an impact on how we look at our funds. You've also realized we've been looking at some ways that we allocate some of our resources. Steve is leading a process looking at how we allocate dollars on a per pupil basis, particularly to buildings and departments. And then our last piece is making sure that we have long-term resource allocation models in place for anything from continuing on operations through our facility maintenance and other projects. So our goals that you see laid out 1 through 5 are how we move forward with the budget, but those sub-bullet points off of 1 are the ones that you've seen in the past. At the last board meeting, you did approve the strategic plan. I think the PowerPoint here actually has one from.
This is our new one.
This is our new one, thank you, Rebecca. This is just a new version of the flyer that we have that articulates our strategic plan in more of a flyer basis. I think there's a copy of it at your seat. Just articulates our updated vision statement, our visionary aspirations, and the key work that we're going to be working on here over the next few years. To move forward into more of the pieces that align with some of the dollars and cents that we're talking about tonight, public schools are governed under something called the revenue cap. Just as for those in the audience and others who may not be familiar with that, the revenue cap is the amount of dollars that a district can spend over their given year. Underneath that has 2 different pieces. One is the state aid, dollars we get from the state. The other area is our tax levy, and they move in concert with each other. If one goes up, the other one goes down. If one goes down, the other one goes up. So for example, if state aids go up in a given year, the property tax issue underneath the revenue cap goes down. But the revenue cap is the cap on how many dollars we can raise. You can see that over 17-18 and 18-19 school year, there was a 0 increase to the revenue cap per student. So the only way that we're receiving additional dollars under that formula is really through new students that are coming in, and we're seeing growth that's occurring. Because what has happened in the last biennial budget is that the dollars for increases per student came outside of the revenue cap or outside of the revenue cap formula, and they were set at $204 per student for 18-19. Last year they were $200 a student. So these did not follow the same rules of where the dollars would flow through the revenue cap formula. They were off to the side. Part of the reason that this took place is that every district in the state received a true $200 or $204 per student. So that was certainly a large increase for us in the last biennial budget. This year, $204 is the increase that we're able to allocate per student. In a subsequent slide, you'll see exactly how that breaks out between state aids, tax levy, and the categorical dollars coming under that line item. You can see our Fund 10 budget planning for 18-19 was based on an increase of almost $1.6 million. In order to get to that, you have to add the 2 numbers at the bottom together. So the $568,000 is what we're getting from the revenue cap, and the $1,024,000 is what we are getting through the categorical aid program. So those 2 together bring forward our Fund 10 budget of the $1.5 million. Taking a look at our revenue cap, you will see that our revenue cap history over time. In 18-19, you're looking at a revenue cap decrease. This is partially because, or a big part because, we had from 14-15 through 17-18 school year, we had dollars in there from the referendum. So some of the exceeding the cap dollars. So those funds have hit their 4-year phase-in window. So now you see that in 18-19 that those are just part of the budget moving forward and are not base building, are not adding to the additional dollars to the cap. So that's accounts for the decrease from 1.3 million down to 568,000. It's just that we've fully implemented our referendum funds, and those are no longer building up in this fiscal year. All right. When we take a look at our state general aid, our increase for 17-18 was $0. and 72 million as a state level in 18-19. So Waunakee is estimated to receive 245,000. I actually looked up what the actual was today because those were released today. We're at 270,000. So we have a $24,000 increase in our state general aids for this year. So basically what that means for us, and I think Steve articulated it well in this last bullet, under the state revenue cap formula, which we just spoke about, increases or decreases in state aid are offset by increases or decreases in property tax levy. So in this case, we have an increase in our state general aids, so that will mean we have a decrease of that same amount for our tax levy. From a property tax perspective, our school levy tax credits are something that are continuing to be a method of distributing dollars at the state level. School districts are not informed of the tax levy credit amounts, so that is not something that we are able to articulate as far as the impact on our levy at this point. Those are items that show up on our tax bills. Districts that are wealthy and high spending often receive more dollars through tax credits. We do receive some dollars through that venue, but not as great as many other districts who have higher valuations than Waunakee. This has also been an area that our board has lobbied against in trying to move all of the distribution of aids, not through the tax levy credits, but to have them move through the general equalized aid formula. Speaking about enrollment, this is something that you saw at the last board meeting as well. We had budgeted an increase of 41 students, or 41 FTEs. We actually had an increase of 84, so that's 43 more than we had in the fall. That will have a positive impact on our revenue cap. When Steve and I had a conversation about this, we figured that will account for about an additional $100,000 of revenue cap authority based on those additional 43 students. And the way that the 43 students get articulated through our system is that it takes 3 years to account for any new growth because it's on a 3-year rolling average of enrollment. So you can see our enrollment trends over time. When you take a look at all of our students that we are serving in the district, as of the third Friday count, we have 4,340 students. You can see the trend line from 2011-12, where we've started just to articulate kind of our continued growth that is occurring across the district. The next item, which will be a continued conversation with our facilities committee and the full board, is just giving you an idea of where we are with building capacity. As I reviewed these today, I think the middle school numbers do not articulate the portable classroom that we have in the back, and the intermediate school, as we've had discussions about the capacity at that building, that is at 800 and not at the 750 or about the dollars that are articulated there. The other ones are relatively accurate with regards to reflecting what our capacities are. When you take that into account, it shows that we have capacity for 4,700 students in the district, or have capacity where we can grow up to another 366 students. Now, when you add in the pieces that I just discussed with the intermediate school and the middle school, it's probably a tick higher than the 366 as far as what our actual capacity is. But this will be an area that we will certainly be concentrating on this year as we look at our enrollment trends and our needs across the district from a building perspective. Taking a look at the expenditure side, we are looking at a 2.8% increase over the 17-18 budget. When you take a look at what we move forward with additional staff, we have 6.94 full-time equivalents, increases in our staffing levels. The school board will be working between now and the November board meeting to solidify a recommendation on our salaries and wages for this fiscal year. And our contingency fund is set again at $100,000. You can see the trends that we have had with regards to general fund expenditures since 2011-12 up to the present. So these are numbers that you've seen in the subsequent versions of the budget. You can see our per pupil spending per student. You can see a decrease this year for 18-19. Part of that is because last year we had some large expenditures. We paid off the Bethel Circle property, and we also contributed dollars towards Warrior Stadium. So when you look at those pieces in 17-18, that played into some of our expenditures per student, but since those were one-time large costs that we had, that decreases us back down to a different level for 18-19. Taking a look on the revenue side, I had said in the budget we have the $245,000. I articulated that is actually going to be $270,000. That will impact our local tax levy that we will be putting forward. So it's a total increase in revenue of just under $1.8 million. And that's an increase from the budget for 17-18. This is the slide, I think, that really articulates where the dollars are coming from. When you look in 2011-12, that's just a good example of this is when we did not have dollars that were coming from some sort of a categorical aid program. We had the revenue cap was really the driver of our revenues, and you saw 44.6% from state aid, and then the offsetting 49.8% from our tax levy. When you take a look at 18-19, you will see 41.9% from our general state aids, 46.1% from our tax levy, and the 5.6% is that categorical aid, that $204 per student. So you can see how that's just distributed and where the dollars are coming from. So the state dollars are actually the 41.9 plus the 5.6%. See the tax levy that we will, and the trends that we have had again from 2011-12 to 18-19. Couple notes on the levy. The increase that you see in the levy is primarily due to general Fund 10 expenditure increases and debt service payments in Fund 39. That's the referendum debt. The school board is allowed by law to change the tax levy as necessary prior to November 1st. That will be our meeting that we will be holding here on the 29th of October, where we will set the final budget and set the levy. And the debt service levy, which is part of the larger levy, is $7.3 million. And you can see that by 27-28, that will be where our financial plan peaks. And then we'll have decreases in the debt service beyond that. Equalized value. This is a very important item for us because it's really talking about where are we distributing that levy to. So when we look at last year's levy, or last year's valuation was at $2.6 billion. Steve's early projection, which I believe was about a 3% increase, it was at $2.7 billion. And when I pulled out the October 1st computation from the state, it's actually higher than that. It's actually almost 2.8. So it's $2,791,990,000. So we're really pushing for 18-19 what I believe is pushing like a 6+% increase in our valuation, which you're going to see because of that growth in our property values. It does have a positive impact on pushing our tax levy and our tax rate down. So this is actually projected at 11.27 as our tax rate. You can see the impact on a $200,000 home. There's an estimated $20 decrease. But this was based off of a 3% increase in our valuation, and as I stated, that 2.7 is pushing 2.8, so it will further compress downward our tax rate. So that will have a further positive benefit for our taxpayers. Like I This is what I had just actually, had just gone over. Steve had built the budget off the 3%, and we are significantly higher than that with our projections. We'll bring those final totals to the meeting at the end of the month where we set the final levy, and we'll have actual numbers for you to respond to at that time. All right. Changes in property values. There's two types of shifts that can occur between municipalities and within municipalities. So the first thing is valuations of properties change over time. You can see that in previous examples. Westport's paid 23.1% in 17-18, 23.6% in 16-17. This is an example Steve's used the last few years to just show how the percentage of the levy has actually shifted. And then within municipalities, assessment values can change. So you really see kind of those two shifts that he's talking about. A piece that we will articulate at the meeting for the end of the month is the actual numbers and percentages that each of our townships and the village pay for our as proportion of our tax levy. The items that I have in front of me just show the exact amount of our valuation, but we need to put that against our final levy to then determine the proportion that is distributed out to each of our municipalities. Fund balance is certainly an area that we have been keeping an eye on and been strategic with. You can see the decrease in our fund balance to 15.3%. Again, that is a reflection of us spending dollars last year for the paying off of Bethel Circle and the dollars that went towards the Warrior Stadium project. The next step in the budget process, we will be it's really just updating many of the numbers that we've already talked about, making sure that we have the September enrollment count is going to be added to the budget. We will be then reviewing what we have as far as changes from the third draft of the budget, which the board approved in July of 18. And there will be an adjustment to those budget lines, given actual dollars that we have budgeted for those items. Some areas we don't know the final budget items that we need until we get into the fall. The final district property values and the revenue cap are completed in September and October. Our aid payments came in on October 1st, and we'll be determining our tax rate, and that will all lead up to our meeting on October 29th, where we'll bring the actual numbers, and the board can approve the final draft of the budget and also set the final levy so that we can move forward with meeting our statutory obligations by November 1st. Our budget and our finances are under continued review. We have Mark Hetzel serves as our board treasurer. You can see that we have a budget committee, the school board, Department of Public Instruction, our school district external auditors. And then we also are rated as we go out to the market by Moody's and Standards & Poor's. And then any citizens are also welcome to meet with our business department to review any of the information with regards to our budget. That one. Just a few pieces on our tax rate as far as how that compares to other districts. We can see Waunakee falls just at about the midpoint of our comparable districts in the area, which has been really our continued trend over the last number of years. And then you can see our cost per student, again, is, I guess that's is again at the bottom tier of our comparable districts on our cost per student basis. So those are all pieces I think when you take a look at the conversations we had at the last board meeting on student performance, that there's a great deal of value that is brought to our district for being relatively lower spending compared to our comparable peers and having very high achievement results for our students. At this time, I'll do my best to answer any questions that anybody has with regards to the budget.
So at this point, it's a discussion and review of the budget, and first up is Tim Kiefer.
Hi, good evening. It's great to be here. I've actually never known, do I talk into this microphone or?
He'll actually be able to pick it up. You can just talk.
Okay. So it's good to be here again, and I wanted to address three brief topics in discussing the budget. First is recognizing the National Merit semi-finalists from Waunakee High School. I think it's always important to recognize them because that's a tremendous achievement that very few people achieve. And this year, there were 4 National Merit semi-finalists from Waunakee High School, those being Kendra Gearing, Genevieve Grade, Samuel Korth, and Dane Lubke. And so, first of all, I just wanted to mention that. I think it shows that there's lots of ways to measure how well we're doing as a district, but one way to measure it is, are there people who are achieving that level of being a National Merit semifinalist? And this year we had 4, just by point of comparison. DeForest had only 2, so we did beat DeForest. Second point I want to make has to do, and this relates directly to the budget and finances, the question of TIFs. And I know that has been a controversial issue in this community, perhaps more so at the village level, but it is something that is a shared responsibility, TIFs and TIDs, with the village, with the county, with the MATC district, and the school board. It's an area of shared responsibility. And I should point out that the county representative on the TIF and TID committees is appointed by the county executive, not by the county board. So even though I do serve on county board, I do represent the area that encompasses the village and part of the town of Westport. I don't have any direct control over who gets appointed by the county. But I do know the 2 people who the executive does appoint, those people, depending on who's available on any given week, would be either Adam Gallagher or Chuck Hicklin. And I know their instructions, as I understand it from the executive, is to follow the lead of the local community. And so if the local community, as represented by, among others, the school board, is in favor of a TIF, the county's typically going to vote in favor of it. If the school board's not, then not. I do believe there's an instance recently where I think the school board did vote against it, and then the county person was actually unable to attend that meeting, so that there wasn't a vote from the county on that one. But I guess I would just say that the representative of the county on the TIFs and the TIDs does follow the lead of what the local community wants, and I think that's the way it should be. And sometimes people reach out to me saying, what can I do about it? And typically I refer them to contact the representative directly because I don't get my own vote on it. But I would just leave it out there that I think there's questions about whether or not there's too many TIFs in this community, whether they're truly needed or not, and we in the county are going to take the lead from what you do here as a board, among others such as the village. So that's the second point. The third point is I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for serving on the board. As we all know, the Brewers are in the playoffs playing right now, and the Packers are in the Monday Night Football right now, and I see Mike Brandt has a Packers coffee cup. I don't know if that's a signal that we should keep this meeting short so people can go and watch Monday Night Football. But people who are in local government really do sacrifice a lot. It's a lot of late nights, a lot of long meetings. I know from serving county board, people typically call me because they're unhappy about something. In 6 years on county board, actually no one yet has called me just to say how happy they were about something. It's always some sort of issue, which is fine. That's what we sign up for. But I just did want to at least once a year come in and thank you for what you do, because I just think it's really great. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget or the school board? Seeing none. Next, we move on to review the minutes from the October 16th, 2017 meeting. And you all should have it posted through board book, or if there's no questions or issues, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. And next is we will receive the treasurer's report from Mark Hetzel.
Okay, the treasurer's report is on our website. I'm not gonna read through the entire report, just identifying how it's set up, that we have the funds identified on the left side. And with each of the columns, we have the description of the funds, followed by the beginning balance, revenues, expenses, and ending balance. Probably two of the most significant things, again, Randy referred to the general fund situation where we do have a $715,000 negative, and that's because of the contributions we made to Warrior Stadium and the transfer of referendum funds into Fund 40 for the capital project funds. The other fund that some people might want to take note of is Fund 73, which is our Employee Benefit Trust Fund, and that is set up so that we do not have a non-funded liability for our employment benefits programs.
And if there's anything else, there would need to be a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Move approval of the treasurer's report as submitted.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. And that ends the budget portion, and that brings us on to the resolutions for the annual meeting. Now, the resolutions can be made or seconded by anyone in attendance, so please just state your name so that it would be in the minutes properly if you make the motion or you make a second. And the first one, as every year, is the student fee resolution, Resolution A, authorizing the school board to charge student fees. Is there someone to make the introduction?
Michelle, I move that we adopt Resolution A as presented in the materials.
And is there a second?
Kurt Ely, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And Resolution B, salaries and expenses for the school board officers, which is, as written, the same as the previous year. Is there any?
Move approval. Tim Kiefer.
Tim Kiefer motion, is there a second?
Tim Shell, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And the motion carries. Resolution C, the school lunch program authorization. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution C as presented.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yes. I believe it was 2 years ago, there was a discussion at the annual meeting about the so-called peanut butter sandwich controversy, and I believe the informal agreement at that time was that the board would study it and then report back as to what the end result was. And so my question to the board is, what was the ultimate decision on the peanut butter sandwich thing, which is, just to give you context, if someone doesn't know what I'm talking about, as I understand, if someone didn't qualify for free and reduced price lunch, but also didn't have money in their lunch account, the way the school district was dealing with that would be they would get a peanut butter sandwich, and I guess there was some statements that some of the younger kids in particular were being teased about eating a peanut butter sandwich when their friends were eating regular hot lunch. And I believe the discussion 2 years ago was that there was going to be some investigation on what the school district decided to do. So I wonder if someone could report on that.
Yes, I would be happy to. We started a committee to study that called the Student Financial Assistance Committee. And I'm happy to report that beginning this year, every child receives whatever lunch they pick up. So we do keep the families informed when their budgets fall below the zero mark, but we've taken it out of it's not a kid problem, it's an adult problem. And we do have this committee, and we've been looking at some contributions in this assisting kids who have some financial needs. And at the end of the year, the money will be paid up from this committee. So no child will be having a peanut butter sandwich. And actually, we changed it to cheese, but they're not gonna have a cheese sandwich either.
That seems anti-Wisconsin.
Well, thank you for the update.
Yeah, so we have cleared that up, thank you.
Any other discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. And motion carries. Resolution D, legal counsel. So periodically, it's necessary for the board to have legal counsel and advice, and we need approval for that. So resolution D is authorization for legal counsel. Is there a motion?
Kurt Ely, I would present make a motion to approve resolution D as it is written.
Is there a second? Exactly like last year, perfect. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And that motion carries. Next is resolution E, where you may set the date and hour for next year's meeting or give the board authority to set the set the date and time. The resolution as written gives the board the authority to do that, but that's up to someone to make such a motion.
Tim Shell, I move that we adopt resolution E as presented, giving the board the parameters to set the annual meeting.
Is there a second?
Jim Kiefer, second.
Oh, you ruined last year's. So the motion stands. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And that motion carries. Next is transportation, and the board needs approval to contract for bus services or operate buses on their own. And the motion gives the board that authority. Is there a motion?
Tim Shell, I move that we adopt resolution F for transportation as presented in the packet.
Is there a second?
Kurt, go ahead. I'll give it to Dean Kaminsky, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no, and that motion carries. Next is adoption of a tax levy, and based on the budget you've heard earlier, the board is recommending a total tax levy of $30,409,276, and with a breakdown, here. The increase is the capital expansion fund tax levy from $209,296 to $509,296, and segregating an additional $300 to the maintenance capital projects. Is there a motion for that resolution?
Kurt Ely, I will make the motion for resolution G.
Is there a second?
Tim Shell, second.
Okay, so the motion G as written in the resolutions stands. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And the motion carries. And the last is, we open the meeting up, it's free to ask for information or answers of any board member or administrator. And seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 7:40. Beating last year's record by 20 minutes.
Thank you all.